How many times have I been running in my circles, hoping to get just that little bit closer? I guess that might just be because I thought it might be good to finish first, like you do. I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. Yeah,
So, hi, Jodie. How you doing?
Hi, Dawn. I'm well, thanks. And how are you?
Yeah, I'm fantastic. Living my best farm life at the moment.
There's nothing better than farms, hey?
I tell you what, it's totally true. So welcome to the Diverse Creative Podcast, and we're just going to have a chat and let the conversation kind of unfold, like I was saying before we hit record on this particular meeting. And we're obviously going to talk about Galpalooza because you were one of the artists performing at Galpalooza this year. And if I were in the area, I would be so excited to see you perform live. I've obviously been listening to your recorded music and I really like what I hear. So tell me in your own words a little bit about yourself as a musician and kind of, yeah, maybe not your genre, but what you kind of put out into the world.
Well, I think predominantly, I guess every musician kind of starts that way in the sense of like it's more singer-songwriter based. So for me, it's always been very, very important having a good structure lyrically as well as musically, and joining the two together. But for me, it's mainly about the story. So whenever I create music or gig or whatever like that, whatever songs I choose, it's always very sort of linked to a particular narrative that I guess I'm trying to portray. So that's I've always tried to. I like writing about different things. Put it that way, you know. So for example, sort of imagining a scenario and seeing how that sounds, what that would sound like. Some examples are We Climbed the Volcano, one of mine that I wrote, which was about a volcano. You know, literally climbing up a
Yeah.
volcano, and the chorus was a lot of breath. Which to
Which
me
I
is
actually
is
thought was
quite
so
interesting.
cool. I really enjoyed that one, actually. I thought that was
Thank you.
fantastic.
I like playing with the sort of tribal elements and the Viking elements as well, in amongst sort of a folk kind of alternative rock kind of mixture. It all depends on the day, I think, for the most part. But I think that's mainly because I need a lot of versatility as a person. I need to jump from a couple of different things to actually keep me engaged. So it's more about just providing a lot for me to focus on, so I don't go a little bit crazy in between.
I got the impression from your bio, your EPK, as well as from the artwork on your actual albums, that you are quite a character. So I get what you're saying, and I love the fact that you kind of describe that as like imagining a scenario and trying to see what that might sound like. I really love that. I love that description. I run a lot of songwriters workshops and kind of try and encourage and guide people into writing original content and on how to start writing a song. Um, Tell me a little bit about your songwriting process, because I mean, from that description, it sounds like quite an imaginative experience.
I mean, it obviously depends. I mean, there's certain ones that maybe acquire a little bit more sort of feeling to it. But for the most part, whenever I start singing, it's usually I'll either wake up with a melody in my head. I've had it in scenarios where I'll be dreaming, and I'll be dreaming I'm writing a song, and then I wake up and I can't remember it, and I'm furious because it was so good, you know. But then probably if it was recorded, it would be terrible anyway. But the idea is that I think for the most part the lyrics always come first for me. So I always I quite like writing poetry and reading literature and all those sorts of things. So I think for me it's always the lyrics that are formed first. And interestingly, I found that I'm not very good at writing choruses in a large, if you look at everything on a bigger sort of scale. I'm really good at the verses, but when it comes to the chorus, it's the part that everyone loves and needs to be catchy, and it's a lot of pressure. And I'm very scared of the choruses still to this day.
Like
Um,
chorus stage fright.
Yeah, pretty much. Because especially, I do a lot of collaborations and stuff like that. And it's the scariest part when it gets to the chorus. But anyway, yeah, so definitely the lyrics come through first, then I get an idea of sort of the storyline, and even if it's just like the first verse or a first line that's written down, then from there I'll sort of grab the guitar and noodle on it a little bit, and then see where it wants to go from there. Because I think I know it's very corny and cliched to say, but in a way, it sometimes writes itself. I've had it where maybe I've woken up in the morning, I've heard a melody, I've grabbed the guitar, done a noodle, and in an hour it's finished,
Yeah.
from start to finish. And I love those days because that's when you know that you're truly understanding what you're feeling, or you're truly understanding the sort of scenario that you're in. And it just kind of flows and writes itself, which is it's really a fantastic experience.
I can so relate to what you're saying because I have very similar experiences. I've also had songs kind of come to me in dreams. Sometimes it's the melody. Sometimes in my dream I'm literally like playing my guitar and singing a song. And I wake up going like, this is fantastic. And fortunately, I've learned to just kind of keep my phone next to me so that I can literally wake up and like voice record whatever I've just been dreaming about. And I often do find that like the song kind of seems to kind of come through, like almost like you're catching a thread, you've caught the first line or you've caught a line that fits in somewhere and you pull on it, and then suddenly like the whole balloon with all the like glitter comes pouring through the void and like crashes on you and you've got like a whole song. Um so I really love that because I feel like that is like being a true, almost like a being a bard, being like a true songwriter, someone who's kind of like it's part of your purpose largely to do that. It's the core of who you
Yeah.
are. And I also find it interesting because over the years, before I learned to play an instrument, I would also have melodies and lyrics. I'd like always have like lyrics and melodies coming to me. And I had to kind of go and learn to play instruments to try and translate what I was hearing in my head
And support
into
it,
a
yeah.
form that other people could then hear, right? So
Definitely.
most musicians I talk to tend to tell me that they write kind of instrumentally first and then find the lyrics. And I really like hearing that there's someone else out there like me who kind of often finds lyrics first and then figures out the
Very
melody
much
that fits.
likewise, yeah. If we could, we just sing wherever we could, hey, without the instruments
Totally.
sometimes, but it doesn't quite translate, like you mentioned.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't catch people quite as fully as when you get up on stage with like a guitar, right? And then they're
Yeah,
like, oh,
no,
she's going to make
exactly.
music.
Yes. Otherwise, it's just.
And I really like the fact that you kind of are combining elements of stuff that's kind of more tribal, more Viking, and stuff that's a bit more like alt rock vibes. In some of your vocals, I could hear a bit of like Avril Lavigne, but at the same time
Yeah.
with something that's a bit more kind of organic and tribal and less poppy, which I really enjoy. I was like, that's great for me.
It's funny because it's. I think someone asked me, I think it was in an interview once, where they said, what happens when alternative music becomes popular? Is it then defined as popular, kind of
Good
thing? That's
question.
which I
Yeah.
thought was really, really interesting because I think there's a kind of like sort of transition happening in music in general. If you think about sort of Aurora, I don't know if you've listened to her music before,
Yeah.
but she is phenomenal. Right, but I wouldn't necessarily put her music into pop. But she's doing so well, and it's becoming popular because I think people are sort of, kind of trying to find that sort of their roots. They're trying to go back to their roots a little bit there. And I think it's a lot to sort of be excited about and to explore with, just sort of meshing different genres together because we need that. We need to keep sort of you know mixing new recipes and creating new things so that we don't just follow the same structure.
Yeah, it actually gives me a lot of hope because like my music is very based in sort of tribalism and like folklore, Celtic kind of folklore and myth and legend. And um I always used to feel growing up that I didn't quite know where it would ever fit, which compounded my stage fright like quite a lot. Like it
Yeah.
impacted my confidence in what I was creating because I felt like it was something kind of old and otherworldly and definitely not what I would classify as pop. And obviously, I think we do forget that pop has its roots in what's popular and whatever that might be at the time. At some point in time, Bob Dylan was pop. We're now like Bob
Exactly.
Dylan is a folk musician, but ultimately there's been points in time where folk was pop at that point in time. And like you said, now with Aurora and the stuff that she's doing, it's bringing in a lot more like tribalism into music again, and definitely becoming something popular, even if it's not what we know pop to be as a genre. But it does certainly
Yes.
give me hope for musicians like myself and like you, who are a little bit quirky, a little bit different, and who are combining elements from various sources and cultures. And, I really think that that is a hopeful thing, especially in a world of AI where everyone's following a trend or
Exactly.
just trying to repeat what they've heard somewhere else.
Yep.
So you're performing at Galpalooza this year. Have you performed at Galpalooza before, or is this your
Yes, I
first time?
think I'm not sure if it was last year. Otherwise, it was something to do with Galpalooza. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it was just sort of like a follow up to the main event, because I think the last time it was held, yeah, it was held somewhere different. But yeah, I think I did one of the follow up sort of events, but this will be the first time at the actual festival, which I'm very to see all the wonderful ladies performing, and a lot of them are so great, and I admire so many of them. So it's going to be really lovely to just sort of share that sort of community and celebrate everyone with their wonderful noises that they make.
And obviously, as a songwriter and as a performing musician, do you mostly perform originals, or are you one of those musos that likes to mash some originals and covers? What's your like on stage vibe? Because I've gone and listened to your music, and I've listened to your original stuff. So I've never got the opportunity to see you perform live. So tell me a little bit about what a live performance is like for you.
So usually I like to do a 1-to-1 ratio. So I do one original, do that throughout whichever set. I've had it in the past where I've performed for 3 hours, and it's nice because I've got quite a large repertoire of songs, of original songs that I can actually perform. And so that allows me to literally just, sort of 1-1, which is nice because I think to a degree you almost need to play covers just so that people recognize, they sort of, their ears perk up and they're like, oh, I know that one. Because otherwise it's very easy to very quickly become background noise, especially if they're not necessarily, going to a restaurant or going to a festival to see you. You sort of need that kind of, I don't know, I guess it's like alert, attention, notification, I don't know. So I find that it's nice in that sense to play a few covers, and also I really like the way the acoustic the acoustic feel and the atmosphere and everything can change a way a cover sounds. So I'm trying to think of an example. I think I do a Puddle of Mud cover. I think the song is called Blurry or something like that.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a heavy rock song, right? It's like, maybe not heavy, but it's fairly rock, okay? And when I play on acoustic, I'm still trying to create that very, very rockish vibe. But it's obviously not very possible without drums and without the bass and without, the lead electric guitar and everything like that. But I still somehow filter that through. So I'm hearing it in my head. If no one else is hearing it, I don't know. But I like to see how different things change around a little bit, and it's still the same song that you know and love, but maybe tweaked a little. And that's why I like the idea of covers as well in a sense. But it's good to try both. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a rendition of a song where you've put your own flavor to it is important. You know,
Yes.
um, I've performed and worked with people over the years that are obsessive about performing it exactly the way that musician wrote
No.
it. And for me, that kind of feels a bit like sacrilegious almost, like
Mm,
you're never gonna be that musician, you're never gonna be
exactly.
Dire Straits or like
Mm-hmm.
you know so I do think it's important to put your own spin on things and your own flavor. And when it comes to your set, particularly at Galpalooza, do you have any plans for what you'd like to do? Are you going to do something more original, or are you going to stick with your 1-to-1 ratio?
I'll probably stick to the 1-to-1 because purely because it helps me to sort of what's it called, center myself. I think on the stage as well, because I don't know if you found it or not found out, but I don't know if you've experienced this where you're on stage and maybe you get a little bit distracted. I do all the
Yes.
time, especially if there's TVs. It's not good. I'm watching the soccer or something ridiculous. just because it's there. So I think some of them I have to focus on a little bit more, and that's why I like that sort of balance, because then it's a bit of me and it's a bit of what I aspire to be, So
That's a
it's a
nice
good.
way of putting it.
Yeah, I think so. So it's I think I hadn't written my set yet. I'm going to be completely honest. For Galpalooza, I usually do it like a couple of days before, and then I run through it a few times, and then give it a go on the day. But it's interesting because I think even on the day it can always change. I don't know if
Yeah,
you do this, but I tend to keep a red book with all my songs in, and
exactly.
then
Yeah.
if I don't feel like writing it, if I don't feel like performing a particular song at that particular time because it doesn't feel right,
You drop it and pick
I'll
another.
mess around and grab another one. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was performing just solo, it was easy for me. I didn't ever plan a set. I would just get up there and just play whatever came to me in the moment. And I'd be like, that was clearly the right thing to play. And I would find myself sometimes getting off stage going, oh, damn it, I should have played that one. Or I really wish I'd played. Why did I forget that one? So I did start just writing like the epic list so that I could
Yes.
scan down it and kind of go, oh, no, no, that one. I like that one. Definitely let's pull that one out the bag. And then over the last couple of years, as my act has kind of developed and I started playing bigger stages and bigger events, I started working with other people. And at first, it was just my brother-in-law on the djembe drum, and that was easy because he just knows me so well. He just like he flows with whatever I'm doing, and he has a way of just kind of like
Oh, that's great.
stoically taking whatever I throw at him, unflinchingly, and just
Mm.
finding his path through it, no matter what I've chucked his way. So it was easy enough for me to keep with that, like I'm just gonna go with the flow and play whatever comes to me vibe. Um, and then I started playing with my other brother-in-law, and he is a very, very phenomenal musician, very technical guitarist. So he does like a lot of lead guitar for me and vocal harmonies and harmonica and throws in like a lot of stuff that fills the sound space. But he likes to know what's happening before it happens. He's not like he
Yes,
knows
that's
he
fair.
yeah, right. So he knows a lot of my stuff well enough that I can change it up a little bit. Now I can kind of go, actually, we don't want to do that one. Let's do this one instead. But he does like to have some idea of what a set might be. And in some ways that's been good because it's kind of encouraged me to I suppose curate things a little bit more for a stage performance instead of it just being like on the fly. So I got to be honest, there's been one or two moments where I have got distracted on stage, like you were saying, or where I've perhaps been a little bit stoned. Going to be honest there, got on stage and had a little bit of a smoke. And then I find myself having to make lyrics up on the fly because my brain has been somewhere else. And then I find myself back in a song and I'm going, oh, okay, what rhymes with that word? Because I can't remember my next line. It's fun. I do this all the time.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because there was one situation where I was playing at a market or something like that, and I was playing Bob Dylan's "Blowing the Wind." And now I don't drink alcohol and I don't smoke, so I have no excuse. It's very annoying, but the idea was I was singing "Blowing in the Wind," right? And obviously the chorus is "The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind," and I couldn't remember what the answer was. So I sat there and I went, no, no, because I just, all of the lyrics just vanished. And it was hilarious because I thought, of all the songs to lose the lyrics on, that one must have been the most opportune because now we
Oh
just
my
know that
God.
there's no answer. It was ridiculous.
It literally blew away in the wind. I mean, how priceless
Yes,
is that?
it was gone.
I love that
Oh,
so
goodness.
much. I think it's one of the things about singing original music, I suppose, that there's an advantage there that if you forget your words, no one
Yes,
knows, most likely.
exactly.
Yay.
Exactly.
Um, but I think that's a beautiful story to be able to tell. And often, I think people are generally, when they really look at it, really just impressed that anyone gets up there and remembers as many words as we do remember at any given point
For
in time. I
sure.
mean, if they tried to remember 3 hours worth of words, it would probably stump most people. And musicians, we sort of like, obviously, we train ourselves to do this,
Yes.
but it is definitely a skill. And it's also a skill to kind of figure out a way to fumble through it when you can't remember.
For me, like the lyrics are fine. The lyrics are okay. I'll manage. I can improvise, like you mentioned. It has happened. You improvise on the spot. You create different words. It's okay. But I think the difficult part for me is the chords on the guitar, because then it's a very like the coordination gets very busy. And then
Yeah.
if at the same time, if someone like me who gets quite anxious in social situations, you're looking at everyone looking at you, and you're looking at what's happening, and maybe the waitress dropped a knife or something, and you're like, oh my goodness, there's a lot going on. Okay. Which obviously adds to the performance, but often, inside you're screaming and you're trying to remember everything, which is great. But I think it's quite interesting. I think a lot of musicians are very undervalued. I look at John Mayer, and I'm trying to think who else. Like Joni Mitchell and stuff. The stuff that Joni Mitchell plays on guitar is phenomenal. And then she goes and sings, melodies that are like completely opposite to what she's playing. Or,
Yeah,
it's
wow, that
really,
does blow my mind.
it's phenomenal. I don't know how they do that. I don't know how they do that. I'd like to do that, but I don't know how they do it. Then I remind myself that that's their full-time job, so that's fair.
I honestly I've honestly looked at that same thing over the years, and I've watched musicians do that where they're playing a melody and singing an alternate harmony to that melody. And it was also something that I was like, damn, I really wish I could figure out how to do that with my music. And obviously, when I'm sitting at home, I kind of play around with the concept. And sometimes I'm like, ooh, it was so close. I almost got it. Um, Recording music has actually helped me to find that, funnily enough, though. Because when I go into studio to record a song, there's like another layer of development that occurs there where I suppose I get like that third person perspective where I've sung like the song, I've played the guitar piece, I've sung the basic kind of melody and the basic set of lyrics, and then I get to come back and listen to it and look for harmonies. And it's when I go back into it and I start looking for harmonies that I find where that alternate vocal range actually lives, right? And sometimes that has changed how I perform a song. So there's been moments where I then go back into live performance and I'm able to train myself to stick with that alternate harmony instead and continue playing the original melody. And like the
Wow.
more I do that, the easier it gets to find that skill, you know? How do you feel a song of yours evolves in that recording process?
I think I will actually say that I think the recording process is like the final stamp on it, because I think to a large extent, once I've written a song, it's mostly complete. I'd say it's maybe about 80% done. But if I consider, I don't know if you've listened to Cut the Rope, but Cut the Rope it didn't have a bridge before I was recording it.
Right.
So I recorded the first part that I had, and then I was like, it's kind of sad to leave it there. And so I added the bridge while recording, just because it was something that I heard in the moment, and was able to sort of, add a flip to it, to change the mood entirely. Because it's quite a sad song. It's about, sort of two people climbing and one person having to cut the other one off because they got stuck, kind of thing. And the bridge is kind of like I'm not afraid of falling. Everything's fine. Like, just let me go. It's fine. Which is, I think, really, really great, because I love that sort of space within the recording process, that it's still not concreted yet. It's
Mm.
only concrete once you've uploaded it for distribution, or you've put the final stamp on the master. That's fine. But I think I love how much space there is in the recording process as well. I do all of my recording myself and everything, so it's literally just me in a room, making funny noises for hours on end. But the idea is that I think it's also it becomes more of a blank canvas once you've actually sat down and actually started recording, because that's I think where all the strangeness comes into my songs. Because before then it would probably be a little bit more simple. It would probably just be
Mm.
rhythm and melody as best as possible, and there wouldn't be any, like you say, the harmonies and everything like that. I only find those during the recording process, so I can
Yeah.
completely relate.
Yeah, I think that a song goes through an evolutionary process, like you write the song, you sit at home, you play it, you think, love it. It's amazing. It's like my new baby. You're super excited about it. You take it out for the first time into the big, wide, scary world. You get up on stage with it and you're like, I'm going to share this new song with you guys. And one of two things happens. It either flies and becomes more than you thought it could be. And you're like, I was right to love it. It's a superstar. And then there's the other side of it, which goes, "Meow," and everyone
I've
just
never
stares at
written
you.
that.
And you're
Yeah,
like, that's
yeah.
that's one to shelve for a later date. Just put it over there, leave it on the sidelines.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's the most frightful moments, I think, is actually sharing it with someone else. I think it's a very, very difficult thing to do. And that's why I admire everyone so much for doing it, because they still, they're still doing all the releasing and they still performing live and everything. And it's hard, it's like literally taking your heart and saying, here you go, please don't hurt it too much.
Yeah,
It's okay.
don't jump up and down on this fragile little thing, but have a look.
Yes, yes, exactly. So that makes complete sense.
Yeah, and then obviously I feel like there is like, I mean, you obviously have collaborated with other musicians, and so have I. And I think collaboration is vital in pushing us out of our comfort zones. But I also often refer to the collaboration that occurs between a musician and an audience. That when you get up on stage and you perform songs, those first couple of kind of trial runs where you take it out into the world and you give it a little bit of space to grow, the audience that you're interacting with pushes and pulls the song in a direction. If they get excited about it, it might pick up the tempo of the song a bit, or it might enhance where you put emphasis because of people's reactions to the lyrics or to the melody. And so there is like a collaborative process that occurs between a musician and their audience members. And it's something I'm kind of bringing up fairly often because I'd like people to understand the power they have as the audience and to know how vital they are to the process of creating music. How do you find, or have you found this to be true?
Definitely, for sure. So I've had it multiple times. When you're in a more of a restaurant environment, people are focused on eating and socializing. Right? You are the background music,
Yeah.
and this I find to be often the most difficult performance to kind of have, because you know that the fundamental reason for being there is to feed themselves. Okay, and if you get a sort of applause on the side of it, that's fine, right? So it's gotten to the point where I've actually had to prepare myself before, sort of going to a restaurant gig or something like that, where I've been like, okay, no one is going to applaud. No one is going to acknowledge you. You are going on stage for you. Right. And if I go on with that sort of mindset and a couple of people clap and I'm like, yes, I'm so happy. Right. But I will definitely say that I've often I've played new material at a gig. And if two people clap or one person even claps, I know it's decent, it's all right. But if they zone out and if everyone zones out, then I think, goodness, this song is a failure and I have to try again at another gig another day, because it's
Yeah.
either I think also a mood is very, very important. The atmosphere is very important, and I'm one of those people that struggles to sort of interact with the crowd quite a bit. Yeah, I try my best, but I think everyone's really worried about either really offending people or weirding them out to the extent that they leave.
I suppose you cause a strong emotional reaction either way.
Yes,
You'll be
you'll be
remembered.
remembered, which is wonderful. But I think I tend to stress a lot about that while I'm busy sort of gigging. And I know that if there is a stranger who claps for a song, that will completely bring me out of that. And that will give me sort of like a boost of confidence to actually continue the rest of the gig. I often say to the audience or whatever when I'm up there, I'm saying, well, I'm usually in my room. I'm in my room quite a lot. And so it's really nice to be out here with you, but it is quite lonely up here, so if you could just, like just bring on the claps is really wonderful.
Bring on
So
the
yeah,
claps. Nice.
bring on the claps, or otherwise just wave or smile or nod, but listen. I think
Yeah.
that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Even if it's on the slide, because I think everyone just kind of assumes that it's just a given, that music just happens. And that's why whenever I go to a live performance, I am there with whoever's on stage the whole way through. I will hardly even acknowledge anyone else around me, which isn't great. but I'm listening. I'm fully listening, and I'm fully present. And I think people have forgotten how to do that a little bit. So it's good that you're bringing it up in your podcasts and everything.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, for me as a musician, obviously, I love it when people make eye contact, when they actually look at me and smile. I'm like, oh, you really are here and you really are listening. And
Yes,
it's hugely
exactly.
important. And
Mm.
I think a lot of people, the side of us that they see the stage persona. They see the person who's brave enough to get on stage, who sings, who maybe puts on a bit of a show, maybe doesn't, but whatever it might be, they see only one aspect of the musician. And they often forget that most of us are actually fairly reclusive individuals all the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
time. And if we weren't, we wouldn't have the time and space to create. Right. So it's important that we are actually more reclusive as individuals. But um I think if they know the vulnerability, we wear our stage personas a bit like armor. And that's why we develop
Mm-hmm.
stage personas, is so that there is um, a bit of a gap between our sensitive souls and the reactions of people who are watching us. But at the same time, underneath that armor of stage persona, there's a marshmallow, like soft and squishy underneath.
I love that.
So we're in the last 10 minutes of this interview. The time is like flown. Talking to you has obviously been a very easy process for me. There's a couple of things I still want to ask you. First off,
Mm-hmm.
the penguins. When I was reading your EPK, the penguins. Tell me about the penguins. Give me a little bit about why
I
the
love
penguins.
I love the penguins. I call everyone who sort of follows or interacts or supports my music the waddles. So we call the waddle ship. Like that. I don't know. I have like 5 of those. But anyway, the idea is that the first single that I released was called Paranoid Princess, and it was about a dream that I had. And interestingly, it was more about it was like a girl being chased by a man in a tuxedo. So it wasn't necessarily a very happy dream. But the tuxedo I then associated with penguins because they kind of look like they're wearing one. And that's where the sort of the lyrics came: painted penguins and fancy, like, oh, save me from these people that are sort of clustering around. And I think I just kind of, it was one of those things where it was sort of a dream that was quite fearsome, and I sort of, look how cute the penguin is. And let's all just be a part of it. So I think it's more on the case of now it's become more of maybe my stage persona in a sense, like taking that sort of that fear of, okay, this is what scared you in the beginning. I'm not scared of penguins. I love them to bits. They're lovely. They don't fly, they flap, they waddle. It's fantastic. We love them. But I think it was more about me just sort of wearing that on my sleeve, and then also trying to create a community that, just felt right. And I feel like because it's also the sort of idea of, penguins sort of being monogamous and, sort of staying together for life, it's really, I really value that. I really think it's such a beautiful thing. And I think, you can have that with friendship as well. You can have like a close-knit group of friends, you can have a close-knit community, but you can make sure that you are loyal to each and every one of those people, as like truly and genuinely as possible. And to me, I think that's more what I was trying to create, was just that sort of big family where everyone belongs, and we can all waddle together.
I love that. I really, really love that. And so I'd like to encourage everyone to join the waddle, right? So in
Yes.
doing that, they're gonna need to know where to find you, aside from at
Yes.
Galpalooza on the stage. Like first off, go and watch her at Galpalooza on the stage, and then join the
Definitely.
waddle. And if you can't get to Galpalooza, join the waddle anyway. So where do they find you on social media and all that jazz? Give me your details.
So, yeah, they literally just need to Google the name. It's Jodie, so essentially Jodie Music. So Jodie Reid Music, sorry. Yeah, Jodie, then Reid Music. Reid is Reid. So Jodie Reid Music. There we go. At that, yeah, Jodie Reid God Music, something like that. You'll find it.
Just look.
Mine's gone into a different place now. It's gone. It's waddled on. But yes, Jodie Reid Music. At Jodie Reid Music, just like that. Okay.
Fantastic. And I mean, I know they can find you on Spotify and YouTube and
Yes.
probably all the things, all the different social media
Everywhere.
things everywhere.
Yeah.
So quickly, 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 quickly. because I'm passionate about these things. Tell me a little bit about your favorite collaboration to date. You've collaborated with a couple of different artists from around the world, and which one really stands out to you as something special and why?
Okay, so I think um, definitely one with drawing on scars. It's called Encoded, and it's very rock. It's very on the heavier side of things, and it was inspired by, I don't know if you've ever seen Enola Holmes, but it's Sherlock
Yes, love it.
Holmes's
Love it.
yeah, she's obviously Sherlock Holmes's sister, and I wrote that song based on what her story would be, in a sense. So a lot of it is sort of like, people having her in the loony bin and being like, "What's wrong with you? We need to find out." And her saying, "I'm not telling you anything," which
Love
I
it.
think, I don't know. I just find I really connect with that one quite strongly, because it's about sort of people poking and prodding at you and trying to sort of weigh you down in a sense to find your essence. And you sort of saying, "I've built my walls high enough. You have no impact. You cannot have access to it in a sense."
And
Yeah.
who did you collaborate on in that track?
So it's my sort of side project kind of thing with William Thacker. He's the one who sort of created Drawing on Scars. He's from the US. And he just kind of said, "I need a vocalist," and I was like, "Well, I can help." And so we've made a whole album together. We've made quite a few singles as well, and it's really great because he sort of brings all the wonderful musical elements. Like the instrumentals. He's really good with the production and everything like that. And I just get to sort of top line on top of that and do the lyrics and the vocals, which is really
A
like
lot of
a
fun,
privilege.
right?
Also, and so much fun, and
So
I
much
think it's
fun.
also he's one of the main reasons that I've actually started belting a lot more vocally, because he's been like, "You can do it, Jodie, you can do it," and I'm like, you can't do it. So it's been really lovely and really wonderful to challenge myself. Yeah, fantastic. Love collaborating with him. He's an absolute joy to work with.
That's amazing. So we literally are like out of time. I'm going to say thank you before we get cut off. And I really, oh, such a pleasure. I really, really look forward to one day getting to catch you performing live. And until then, I will join the waddle, and I hope everyone else does too.
Thank you so much, Dawn. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Jodie. It's been fantastic.